Good morning, world. This is Steve Rao, one of the co-hosts of World Edition, and I greet you live from North Carolina, although I feel like I'm in Washington with my background. The news of the day, the Congress actually has just averted another poor time, come to a short-term spending agreement to keep the government going. That was yesterday. And there's been continuing, ruffles going on in Israel and Gaza. I'll be talking about that next week. But the main thing is that today at noon or 11:30, I'm meeting the vice president briefly before her address to Durham, North Carolina, where she's going to be unveiling a significant announcement and investment in small businesses, minority businesses. She's going to be with Governor Cooper and I think the Treasury Secretary. It should be a really good meeting. And I'm looking forward to being there to learn. And I'm hoping I can go on WPTF this evening at 5 to talk about it. But if not, I'll talk about it next week. So I'm gonna open the show up. Some of the other things going on real quickly. I'm going to pull my give me 1 second, Mark. Gazans were killed near 8 trucks, shot more than 100 Palestinians dead, over 35,000 are now dead. Biden and Trump have made separate visits to the southern border. Elon Musk has sued OpenAI. And more than 1 billion people were obese in 2022, according to a new study in the medical journal Lancet. And Russia has detained and fined Sergei Sokolov, the editor-in-chief of Novaya Gazeta, an independent newspaper. But the main reason, I'm going to go ahead and open it up with Mark Lee. I'm going to be here for about 5 minutes. I'm going to try to see if I can take an Uber to my, or Lyft, so I don't have to drive. So I'm going to try to do that on my phone real quick. But Mark, I'll go ahead and kick the show off while I'm multitasking here.
No, you're always multitasking, no problem at all. Like I said, you're off to meet the vice president, and that'll be wonderful. And all along those lines, I see Lee Newton Rhodes is here with us in the background, as is Nick Palveda, and we've also got Rick Rosner here with us on camera and all along those lines. But definitely it'd be interesting to see. I was speculating because she's made a couple of trips to Durham. She was at, I think, St. Joseph some time back. She was at, which is near North Carolina Central University. I think she was at Durham Tech last year. So I was speculating that she was either going to be at American Tobacco or Duke, because I know that both of those are business centers and all along those lines, but I'm not sure. That was just me guessing based on the last couple of trips and all along those lines. But it'll be interesting to see where she goes and what kind of message she brings about economic growth and economic development, because that does seem to be one of the issues that they are trying to press as they are preparing for this battle between the current camp, which would be Biden and Kamala, against Trump and whoever he picks. And there's speculation about that. To people thinking about Kristi Noem and Tim Scott, and he did admit, Mr. Trump, that both of those have been kind of trying to play up to him. Some people would use a term that begins with kiss and ends with another word as well, and he even kind of alluded to that and all along those lines. But definitely, he did say that they were not out of the running. But it'll be interesting to see who he picks. And I did see, and I had an interesting theory. Apparently, last week he met, meaning Trump did, with Tulsa Gabbard, but he was talking about defense industry and how the defense industry can be better run, because apparently that was one of the departments that he caught a lot of flack for when he was president, because I think he went through several leaders in that department, and who knows, he may decide to revamp it. But Tulsa does have some background in that space. She is a former Democrat and all along those lines. So it'll be interesting to see. There has been some speculation that she might even be a vice presidential candidate, but I'm thinking with that particular meeting, he may have been priming her to be the defense secretary, but who knows, and all along those lines. But I was just wondering your take on that and all in that space.
I'm going to go ahead and, I'm going to take off because I want to go ahead and get ready. But my thing is that, and then I'll be back on Monday to open up and be here for the whole show. Guys, thank you for your patience. It's been a really crazy year, just so much going on. The primaries are, well, first of all, I think it's interesting that the vice president is getting out there more and stumping for the president. I think clearly they're trying to strengthen her as a possible presidential contender. His health bill was okay, still very slow gait, not walking very well. But apparently he made it through the medical examination. And so now I think the vice president's been given a chance to roll out some of these things. So we'll see how she does with Roy Cooper, the governor, coming to Durham. I really think they should be coming to Cary. There's a lot of Indians here that are undecided right now, and her mom is from India, so I find that interesting that she's not coming here. But hopefully, we will find out. And I think that I don't know. I really still think that Trump would be better off getting Nikki Haley to be the VP, but I guess Tim Scott, there was a Saturday Night Live skit about kissing the, expletive. We'll see. But anyway, I will be back on Monday. I just got to knock a few things out the door before I get out.
Definitely along those lines, and just to pick it up what you said, and like I said, I know you're walking out the door, but maybe Rick and Nick might have
I just got to get my newsletter
as
out
well. But the Rashida Tlaib, who was behind the uncommitted primary vote, is incredibly scared, she said, I believe that was yesterday, of a second Trump term. And I don't know that she'll necessarily be asking for an expansion, even in other cities, of what went on in Michigan with this whole notion of kind of encouraging uncommitted voters. But definitely she's a member of what is called the squad, and she is refusing to say whether she'll vote for Biden during the ceasefire and all along those lines. But she did say she is definitely scared of the notion of a Trump presidency. And on the opposite side of that, even when we're talking about the health issue, I was telling Nick earlier that I had read earlier in a news article, and maybe we can get Pod TV to get involved, and maybe Rick can help arrange it. But Howard Dean is actually saying that he thinks that Biden is in good health and that he would actually whip the you-know-what out of Trump in a push-up contest. So maybe we can.
If you listen to Biden,
whether that is the case.
If you listen to Biden and you don't just listen to the clips of him pausing on Fox News, they selectively pick. He sounds fine. He sounds like he's in command of the issues, and I mean, he doesn't sound. On the other hand, each side accuses the other of having dementia. Trump can get up there and he says a lot of nonsense, but he can get up there and speak impromptu for like 2 hours. So, and with Trump, he's always been a blowhard and a bullshitter. So it's hard to tell, if when somebody's like that, it's hard to tell if they're in decline. Because they've always
Rick, the flip side of that, and all along those lines, is that another famous individual, like I said, doing a lot of reading recently and everything, but Dr. Phil, who is definitely a TV star, and I always forget that he was an actual real doctor. He is actually trying to hint that the reason that Biden doesn't want to take a cognitive test is because he might have something to hide, and he was doing this based on his observations.
Guys, I'll see you on Monday. Have a good weekend.
I looked at there's a 30. I don't see why he would run the risk of taking a test and somehow underperforming it. But I've looked at the 30-item dementia test, and you can actually bet online what he would score if he took that test, and it's quite easy. I think he would be fine on the test. But why would you take that risk?
No reason for him to take the risk, so he's not going to do it, but his age is always going to be in question because he's 81. Next year he's 82, 83, 84.
Yeah, but I mean, what's the big difference between 83 and 79? Because, like I said, Trump is not exactly a spring chicken himself either.
And everything. Another problem. I mean, he's 77. He's going to be 78, 79. He's going to be 80 if he makes it into office.
Yeah.
I mean, so are we getting the year of octogenarians? I don't know. But I'll tell you what. I was in Costco the other day, and let me tell you, the U.S. is a bunch of old people getting older. And we don't really recognize as the baby boomers, 10,000 per day turn age 65 in this country. When I was in Florida, because I grew up there was a big estate plan community because they're all old. And they said, guess what? Most of the United States is going to be that way in about 10 to 20 years. And we have a serious problem, an aging problem in America that's not being addressed. And where does it become even bigger problem? Oh, there's Lee. Social Security and Medicare. Medicare.
Nick, I have a quick question for you, Nick.
Yeah.
America's aging. How come the campuses all over America are full?
Oh, because the next biggest demographic group is like the Gen Zers. They're bigger than the baby boomers. So what happens is that we're the land of the newlywed and the nearly dead. So at the top end, you have all these old people, baby boomers, a lot of them. And the bottom end, you have the Gen Zers, which are actually a bigger demographic than the baby boomers. And that's the reason campuses are full of students and nursing homes are going to be full of old people.
And the money in medicine goes to where the people are. And so the baby boomers aren't going to die because keep making lengthening lifespan is going to be a $1 trillion industry.
And it's going to be a big problem on our services that none of the congressmen, hey, by the way, Trump and Biden aren't addressing. What are they going to do when Medicare runs out of money this decade? Whoever wins is going to lose Medicare. It runs out of money. And all the people on Medicare who think, oh, life is good and the government's going to support it. Government's broke, so they can't support it. So we have an extremely serious problem. It's like flying an airplane. And you know one of the engines is going out and the other one is defective. That is what we're having. And we only have a 2-engine plane. So what's going to happen? It's going to crash. There's just no question about it. Then it gets worse.
Speaking of fighting and all along those lines.
In the next 5 years afterwards, Social Security crashes. So
But speaking of all those crashes and all along those lines, and I do think that's an important issue, and I definitely want to continue that conversation. But there was a major protest. Some people would be shocked that it took place because, a major Russian leader passed away and was definitely dead, and some people would say killed, and all along those lines. But apparently Russians gathered in subdued defiance to lay fearless Kremlin critic Navalny to rest. So I don't know if they're going to try to arrest all those people in Russia, but there were thousands that turned out for his funeral in Moscow, and maybe they were taking names, and maybe they're going to grab all of those thousands and everything. But apparently, as of right now, they were allowed this very massive protest. As we oftentimes talk about how there aren't massive protests even against the war in Russia, but apparently there was a massive show of support for Mr. Navalny, who is a critic of the current Putin government. So I just wanted y'all's take on that and whether those folks.
Mark, how did he die?
Say what?
Natural causes.
Hey,
natural causes?
Natural causes, yeah. No, it's 43-year-olds.
Healthy as a bee and came out natural causes.
43-year-olds just dropped dead for no reason. Yeah, Rick.
So I want to go back to Social Security, Medicare. If Biden gets reelected, and if odds are against it, but the Democrats have the House and the Senate, Biden will be a lame duck. He doesn't have to run for anything again, and he could do some unpopular stuff like raise taxes on rich people.
Yeah, the thing is, he needs to get the support of Congress to raise the taxes on rich people. And by the way, that's one of the solutions. There's 2 solutions. You got to cut benefits, okay, and change the benefit structure, or increase taxes, or both. Neither one are popular. So what the head of ARP did is just stood up and said, hey, we're behind holding Social Security and Medicare. Okay, but see, that doesn't cut it. It's like me saying, hey, I want $1 million income every year. So what? I'll go down to Durham and protest. It will not make a difference when you're broke.
There is a third solution wait. There's a third solution that's even worse, which is just printing more money.
And then that's a tax on everybody. See, that's what was the solution last time.
But what's going to be the solution? There's another major issue out there that I was actually talking to somebody about yesterday, and all along those lines, and it's an important issue. But there are a number of people that are facing problems with their apartments, and there are a number of people even here in Durham, North Carolina, that are homeless. And I know that there are attempts to create, because apparently there aren't any in North Carolina, tenant associations and all along those lines, even though they do exist in California, New York, and a number of other places. But the question becomes, is this an issue? And it's a local issue, but it's also a nationwide, and some people would argue an international issue. Is there a solution, and was that solution? Because, some people are thinking that they might sit out the election. I mentioned the protest vote. There are people that might sit out the election if they don't get the answers that they want around homelessness. I think that I wouldn't be surprised if that doesn't happen in California and other places where this is a significant problem. So I just wonder, what is the solution to homelessness, and will any of the candidates come up with a solution in our nation's capital and everything? Because definitely it is an issue here in the United States. I would argue
it doesn't matter if people sit out in California because California is 2/3 Democrat. So even if some people sit out, the Democratic candidates will win, in a landslide in California.
Yeah,
So
but
that's the question though. So Lee or Nick, anybody got any solutions for the homeless problem? Because that
Mark,
is a
I got a
problem.
question to answer your question.
Okay.
In a free society where people have personal responsibility, I'm just throwing this out there, and people have personal choices, and choices have consequences, how can you solve homelessness? People can choose to go to college, technical school, get a job, not work, or things just collapse.
Yeah, but if
There's
you
no
get the
guarantees in
job,
life.
if you get the job and you're making like $15 an hour, when the actual
Mark,
cost of living
let's
is
be
probably
honest about
closer to
that.
20 to
$15 an
$25
hour
an
job.
hour. So if you're getting all these different jobs and you're going to college, I'm seeing a number of people and the apartments, and I understand it, it's a business decision, and they oftentimes continue to hike raise the rates and all along those lines and everything. So yes, it is a personal choice, but there are a number of folks I can tell you I can work out later on and maybe go on a food run, and I'll probably run across several people that are homeless, and some of these are working individuals, but they are definitely having problems in their housing. It's not just here in Durham; it's in New York. I got friends in New York. It's in California. It's in
Nationwide,
a number of
worldwide.
places. But I get what you're saying about personal choices, but if the choices are limited, do you really have a personal choice?
Well, it's worse than that. See, this is where Biden and Congress screwed this one up, Mark. Okay, they spent billions, like 60 billion, on bringing internet to like rural areas in Texas, which are being destroyed by fires, costing everybody $50,000 per internet installation because we need internet for all, which we don't. What they should have done is taken that 50 billion and use it to build more housing, but they didn't do it. So that's screw up number one. And why did they do it?
Why do you think they made that choice?
Because they were pandering to lobbyists from the Internet Society of San Francisco.
Nick, hold on a second. I got to back you up on something.
From Palo Alto. Where's Jimmy?
Nick, I got to back you up on something. I got to back you up on something that you just said along those lines, because there have been thousands of houses that have been. Hold on a second, Nick. There have been thousands of apartments that have been built here in the Triangle. There have been thousands that have been built here in the Triangle, and they are oftentimes sitting empty. So isn't part of the responsibility also on the city councils and the government in terms of when they are, because I get it, they want to make their money, they want these construction people to come in, but they don't have any guarantee that there are going to be people going in there, because sometimes the people that are building it then go by the what y'all call the market rate and go by the market rate, and they set these prices. And I can tell you for a fact that there are several apartment complexes here that are not at anywhere near 100%. And if anything, they might be near 50% or less, because they have priced themselves out, but they have people that could fit in there if they would accommodate them.
So the answer is in the future. Construction technology will make building houses and everything cheaper in the future. You look at those 3D, that's thing one. Thing two is we were already talking about the baby boomers. As old people don't make babies. So 1/4 of the world's countries already have a declining population.
Old women don't. Old men do when they marry young women.
Yeah, but
that's our secret, Lee. Let's keep it secret.
Well, population growth in the U.S. is already at the slowest rate it's been in all of U.S. history. So
yeah, we need cheaper housing. We can't. The amount of people paying rent today is just astronomically stupid. And we don't have a lot of people that own their own homes. And we need a government policy that supports housing rather than internet connections in Kansas, which they threw money away. Then they threw money away again. Chips. Oh, we got to have chips produced in the United States because only 12% is produced. And so we're doing corporate welfare subsidizing the chip industry. We don't need chips. We need housing. That's something that should be a government function, housing and food. But chips? So how did the chip industry get subsidized to like $100 billion? Again, this is Palo Alto, California's fault. They ran to Washington, D.C., they sprinkled their little money around Washington, and then all of a sudden, money flew into the chip industry. So your housing is screwed. All the people are listening. that are paying rent. Too bad for you.
Yeah.
You're being screwed by your own
Where
government.
are you going to
Housing is not such a pain to
where are
see.
you going to put the new houses? Because there's a lot of NIMBYism. Like
We have a lot of land out here. I hate to say that. Even in Durham, there's like plenty of land. I'm like shocked. Maybe not in California, but the thing is, there's land everywhere to put the housing. That's not a problem. The problem is government policy is not for the people. It's for the contributors. The contributors of
Nick,
Palo
isn't
Alto,
part of the problem also
California,
the lobbies? Because the
not
construction
for
industry
the
has one of the bigger
people.
lobbies out there.
Let
So
me
you're not
argue in
doing your
favor of the chips. The world's number one manufacturer of chips is Taiwan. If China,
There you go.
yeah, but if China takes back
That's
Taiwan,
if.
then China
You know, that's a
owns.
laconic if, Rick. In other words, the thing is, it's like when the Greeks were in attack Lacan, he goes, well, if the somebody
Nick,
said,
along those same, but Nick, along those same lines to
doesn't
what Rick
count.
is saying, one of the biggest producers,
That
and
was a
he's
joke.
actually been on Barbara's show a couple of times and everything, of lithium, is actually a country that had some issues with corruption way back when, but Uganda is actually one of the biggest distributors of lithium, which everybody, if you've got a cell phone, you're probably using some of their lithium and everything. And they do have somewhat of a relationship with China. And I don't know that we have a strong relationship with that
It's
particular African
always
nation.
the answer is always we're afraid of China, hence give rich people more money in Palo Alto, California. Give me a bloody break. That is not what's happening. What's happening is your congressmen and your senators are being bought out by people in Palo Alto, California. They're living in nice, big, paid-for mansions while you're struggling with your rent because Congress doesn't give a rat's rear about you. They got paid off to provide corporate welfare to the 1%. So you're screwed. Too bad.
Well, speaking of folks being screwed, and Lee's gonna love this one. Speaking of being screwed, and Lee's gonna love this one because there was a movement that existed, and it did exist here in North America, in the United States to be exact, and everything, called Black Lives Matter, and it definitely dealt with the violence between African Americans and the police community. But it is not strictly the relationship or negative relationship with the police is not just strictly an African American issue. It also exists in some of the African nations, and there's something going on that I'm not quite sure that I understand, even though I have friends from one of the countries I'm getting ready to mention, and probably have associates from the other one as well. But we do know that in Nigeria there were police kind of like abuse that was going on, and that would have been like black on black crime because the police and the folks, the youngsters that were being targeted, were both of African descent and everything. So what I'm not quite understanding is that apparently Kenya, which is a very developed nation in Africa and everything, have signed an agreement to try and salvage plans to deploy Kenyan police to battle the gangs in Haiti. So I'm trying to figure out why Kenya wants to go to Haiti and all along those lines, because apparently there's a powerful gang presence in Haiti, and we do know that because Haiti does have some of those issues and everything. So, and the gunfire is paralyzed in Haiti as the powerful gang leaders says he will try to detain the police chief and the ministers, but it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out, because I'm going like, the Kenyan police are coming to Haiti. Don't they have their own issues in Kenya? But I could be wrong and everything. But I just wanted y'all's take on this one nation from Africa going to help a Caribbean nation in their gang violence and all along those lines and everything.
Yeah, well, Haiti's kind of been a failed nation for, I don't know, decades now.
Yeah, but that's with a lot of the Latin American countries. In other words, the thing is, and this is again poor U.S. policy. We're meddling in the Middle East, we're meddling in Ukraine, in our own backyard. We ignore the fact that a lot of the countries here are failed states, and because they're failed states, these people are running to the borders to get in the United States because they're escaping the problems of Haiti, Cuba, Venezuela. Ecuador now is added to the list, which is basically becoming corrupt states throughout Latin America, and we're not doing anything about it. And the thing is, it's not even being brought up in front of Congress. There are no hearings about our Latin American. Whatever happened to the Monroe Doctrine, where we're going to take care of Latin America? I guess that got thrown out the door because none of the oil money from Venezuela ever made it to the politicians.
So how do we from outside the country, how do you fix South American countries with crap government?
One thing is our stupid embargoes that we keep putting on Cuba and Venezuela because we don't like socialism and communism. So what we're going to do is we don't like who the leader is. So we put the economic squeeze on Cuba. We put the economic squeeze on Venezuela. And then what happens? Did the leadership change? No, that was our whole theory. It doesn't work. Instead, what happens is the poor people get screwed. And then they want to leave and they come to our border. So what we have to do is get rid of our horrible international policies, which we're going to put sanctions on Venezuela, sanctions on Cuba, because we don't like who's running it. Instead, you need to learn how to work with these people and stop our horrible international policies, which have existed for decades, which is one reason Cuba hates us, Venezuela hates us, and most of Latin America can't deal with the United States of America. And the ones that live there are desperate. So they're coming to the United States. It creates the border crisis. So who's responsible for the border crisis? Washington, D.C. And they're going to say they're going to fix it. They can't fix it. They're the ones who are responsible for it, you know. But looking in the mirror, let's not even bother. And it's just not one. It's almost every Latin American country. I don't even go to Latin America for vacation. I wouldn't go to the Caribbean. It's like going to a rat-infested scenario. Name one country south of the U.S. border that you would go to for vacation.
No, I've heard some great things. Even one of your cohorts has said, we have people that are from here that have said that Colombia is a great country to go visit. I've heard good things about some of the countries that are there, but definitely Colombia is on that list as a positive country to go. And I've definitely heard that. I've heard that about Belize. I've heard that about a number of places that are positive all along those lines.
They're all on the warning list. All you do is go look at the violence and murder rate per 100,000. You're heading to Western Europe. You're not going to go down under.
Yeah,
and again,
I got to recommend. We've been to Italy a couple times the last 5 years, and Italy's freaking. It's awesome. It's cheap. It's beautiful.
Italy is absolutely amazing. Spain is amazing. So is Portugal. And as a matter of fact, I was looking to buy some real estate over there. And unfortunately, the real estate prices have gone up tremendously because I'm not the only one who says, hey, these are great countries. Morocco's great. I mean, you have a lot of great countries, but our failed policies in Latin America can just not be underestimated. And it starts at the top. Who's on top right now?
Jacoby joined us now. So Jacoby, what's your take on Latin America? Because Nick is thinking that there is no Latin American country worth visiting. And I just said Colombia and Belize are actually not that bad and all along those lines. But he's thinking that there is no country that is Latin America worth even going to visit. But I was just wondering.
What about Argentina?
Argentina is being turned around right
now. Places. There are tons of places. You have one of the 7 natural wonders of the world in Ignatius Falls. You have Chile. You have Patagonia. You have Panama City. You have Costa Rica. You have a ton of places that you can visit in Latin America.
Most of them are failed states because of U.S. policy of Joe Biden. And you got to look at failed states.
If you elect
now, wait. You cannot say that a country that has been around for
failed state, Mexico, failed state.
Wait.
I mean, you got an F grade, Jacoby, in most of Latin America, and it's Joe Biden's fault, which is one reason he will not be president of the United States.
I know, Nick, you're saying that a country that has been around for thousands of years is now failing because in the last 3, Joe Biden has been president? That's ridiculous.
He is right now.
That's ridiculous.
The leader of the free world, and his policies are failing currently in Latin America.
Incorrect.
And that's one reason we have a border crisis. So
the reason.
Harry Truman said,
Nick, just to point out, you're wrong again. Just to point out, the reason we have a border crisis is because we have not changed our laws around the border in decades. On top of that, you have to. No, it's a fact. It's a fact. And then on top of that, the reason we have a border crisis. The reason we have a border crisis is also due to not only climate change and global warming, which is causing a natural migration amongst the people. You also have cartels and everything else in the places where these individuals are coming from that have been there for decades. So, and then if you're talking about not only countries, for example, Chile is Venezuela, Latin American country, which has Chavez, that was the leader, had placed all of its eggs in what basket? The oil basket. When oil prices dropped, that caused a heck of a lot of poverty, and because of the fact that the corrupt government that he was running created even more poverty and problems within that society. So therefore, you cannot blame one individual that was part of the or the president currently being Biden. You also have to blame Trump, who was there. You also have to blame Obama, who was there. You also have to blame Bush, who was there, Clinton, the other Bush, all of them, because of the policies have not changed.
Yeah, I was just saying, Jacoby, and I'm going to get to you, Rick. We're going to take a break because I've got a commercial I want to show about Pod TV, but I've also got one that I want to show about a certain sport, and I love this commercial. It's actually kind of fun, and I dug it up for the internet because it's actually from Latin America, and it's kind of a play on what the sports difference and all along those lines. I might have one about a president that y'all mentioned as well. So we're going to take a brief break. First about the Pod TV store, and then one about the two sports, and then we'll get back into this discussion.
In my country, this is football.
More, and then we'll get into the
My fellow Americans, I want to talk to you tonight about a dinner I recently hosted at the White House. As you may have read in the papers, it was fire. We had like the best salmon I've ever tasted. But the real star was the gin. Aviation American gin. You would not believe how smooth this stuff is. Anywho, I've decided aviation gin is so good that August 19th shall forever be National Aviation Day. And I further decree that on Aviation Day in 2021, Americans who purchase an aviation cocktail at a participating bar or restaurant shall be reimbursed in celebration of smooth deliciousness. As President of these United States, I call on all Americans to visit aviationgin.com for details. FDR out.
Thought we'd have a little bit of fun. Then that was FDR out.
So I got to speak in favor of Brazil. Brazil is a little bit dangerous. You know, they've got like a Trumpy government there, but they also have the best butts in the world. They've got Carnival, which is about butts, and they have a national butt beauty pageant to name the best butt in the country. So, you know.
If I remember correctly, that model whose leg you saw, and she's
Adriana Lima,
is from Brazil. So Adriana Lima is a Brazilian lady. So she might fall in that category of what you're talking about, and all along those lines. Really quickly, and I got a serious question to ask and everything, but before we get to that, well, they're both serious. What do we think about this notion of the protest vote? We kind of talked about it earlier, and like I said earlier, Rashida Tlaib said that she is not going to say whether she'll vote for Biden or not because she's upset about the way that the ceasefire talks are going there in Israel and all along those lines. But she also said that she is fearful of a Trump presidency. So I'm wondering if there is going to be some folks that are going to be sitting on their hands, and if too many people sit on their hands, will that help Trump get elected to a second term? And what are the folks' thoughts around that?
For sure, there are going to be fewer people voting. I don't like to admit it, but there are 160 million Americans voted last time because we made it easy to vote because of COVID, and the Republicans hated that. The more people vote, the more Republicans don't get elected. So it's going to be tougher to vote. We might have 150 instead of 160 million Americans voting this time.
I'm sorry, Rick, how would it be tougher to vote? Just everybody show up in person. How's that a problem? Historically, that's what we did.
That's it. The reason it's a problem for forcing everybody to quote unquote show up and vote is because some people can't actually show up to vote. Some people do have disabilities out of town, different places, enjoy mail-in voting. For example, mail-in voting has been a thing in 26 states and legal, fine, no issues until Trump decided to complain and cry that, oh, you can steal mail-in votes. No, I'm sorry. It has been a legal and valid way to vote in 26 states and has been just okay until, again, Trump does this whole, oh, no, you're going to steal it. It's a lie. It's just made up. For example, Utah was one of the biggest states for mail-in ballots. That's what they do on a regular basis, even for the presidential election. And it has never been a problem until, once again, this man decides to corrupt our political system and say, hey, people who can't do that, they do that only to steal. So, yes, mail-in votes, just fine.
Yeah, and what does it matter? Why do people have to? What does it matter how people express their opinion as long as they get to why do you have to show up day of? Why can't you show up like the Saturday before?
And Rick, I hear what you and Jacoby are saying. Historically, we've had these things called absentee ballots for years. Why did we change that for the last election?
It hasn't been
because of COVID.
You understand something? Just because of COVID, we can ask for an absentee ballot.
It did not change. I literally told you that, for example.
All right, you're frozen, but
hey, Jacoby, you're freezing there, so we'll wait till you get a better location.
I apologize.
Historically, you would ask for a ballot, you would get it. That was never a problem. Why did we need drop boxes and all these other things? Just everybody should just request an absentee ballot.
Lee, it did not change. That's what you're missing. It did not change. The thing is,
why did we have
historically speaking, hold on, historically speaking, 26 of the 50 states have been doing mail-in ballots.
I agree with you.
They've been doing no, but you keep pointing to absentee ballots and saying this mail-in system is brand new. It is not. It has been done for many, many years.
What changed in 2020 differently because of COVID that we didn't do previously? Anything?
The reason that COVID came about, the reason that there was a slight change in terms of allowing other individuals vote by mail was due to the fact you had a disease, an actual virus that became the #1 killer of Americans that year.
How does that affect absentee balloting, though? I don't get it.
It doesn't affect it. It doesn't change anything.
So why did they all of a sudden need drop boxes?
Drop boxes have always been there.
No, they haven't.
Yes, they have. Lee, again, 26 of the 50 states voted mail-in on a regular. There are drop boxes that have been there for years. So it did not change. Nothing really was out of the ordinary besides, hey, instead of risking your life to vote, you can now mail in and vote.
But you're telling me you could do that before in 2016, in 2012.
You could. You could.
So what changed? So what changed then?
Trump came in and lied, and people believed the lie.
That part I have to agree with Jacoby, because I can tell you, I lived in Washington State before I moved to this crazy state. And Washington State, here was your choice if you wanted to vote. Mail in only. So when I lived in Washington State for like a decade and a half, mail-in was your only choice. There was no voting booths, etc. So what changed? Trump just lied. He lied and conned the American public. American public is stupid and gullible. So they ate the whole
Nick
thing.
and Jacoby, you're saying nothing changed in 2020. Forget about Trump. Forget about Trump.
No,
nothing
Trump
changed
was
in the process.
It's all fake. It's all fake meatball. It's like World Wrestling Federation. By the way, I used to be on the World Wrestling Federation. It's all fake.
Were
And
you a
then finally
contestant?
had to admit it. Okay, so Trump basically made it all up. It's all fake. Everybody ate it, just like they did professional wrestling. So the fault of this is actually Trump and the stupid American public. The stupid American public needs to take some blame.
Nick, along those same lines, because you're a good friend, and I'm being sarcastic now, but Nikki Haley has warned that she is afraid that the party has gone to kind of what you and Jacoby are saying, and she's saying that she is the alternative, but that the party, she's now willing to concede that the Republican Party may now be the Trump Party and everything along those lines, because she actually said that, I think, yesterday, and all along those lines. So,
I mean, the thing is, you hear all that garbage all the time. They used to say it was the party of Bush. Bush was the new people that own the Republican Party. Then years ago, Kennedy's owned the Democratic Party. Give me a bloody break. And 4 years from now, we won't, or after this election, assuming he gets in the office, we don't have to worry about Trump. He'll be in some history book somewhere, screwing up the American public for another 4 years. But
I disagree with that. It is the MAGA party, and
media, baby, the circus will come back to town.
The man has actually taken over the RNC and trying to place his daughter-in-law at the head and a yes man as the other part. Yeah, he's taking over the Republican Party right now.
It's good that
Biden took over the Democratic Party. Why don't we talk about that?
But
it's
no,
just,
hold on.
It's
It's
good
good that Trump
there's a guy in North Carolina who says, I'm going to defend reproductive rights. He doesn't say anything about defending unborns because he's pandering to base. So
incorrect.
The Democratic
Party. Biden has not taken over the Democrat Party. Biden has not taken over the Democrat Party. Biden is currently the president, but
stranglehold on the Democratic Party right now. Where are the debates? Where are the debates, Biden? There isn't any. It's Biden.
Because here you go. It's thick. Historically speaking, can you point to a time when an incumbent president was actually up in the middle of primary debates? No, you cannot.
No,
you cannot. Bush didn't debate. Trump didn't debate. The incumbent president is already given the next thing. No, I'm just pointing out the facts.
Baby.
Pointing out the facts.
You need to do like Lyndon Johnson. Say, I'm stepping down, baby.
But along those same lines and everything.
Wait, hold on.
I would argue that there are people in the Democratic Party, and I'm not saying that's not the case in the Republican Party, but there are people in the Democratic Party that are.
Let me say what I was going to say.
Go ahead.
It's good that the Republican Party is the party of Trump, because Trump's support tops out at about 40%. The Republican policies aren't representative of what Americans want. The Republicans need to lose a big, and then maybe they will reform. But right now, the Republicans haven't won the popular vote. They won it once in a presidential election since 1992. They need to come up with better policies if they're going to be a viable party. And Trump is just bringing that to a head. I would hope that they run as the Trump party. They get spanked because independents, a lot of them are disgusted. And the Republicans learn a lesson and become more reasonable.
But Rick, as they say in Pawn Stars, that ain't happening. What's happening is Trump is right now.
Nick, along those same lines, hold on a second. Nick, along those same lines, what you just said is if what you're saying is true, then there would not be what some people call the squad. Some people don't like them. Some people do like them. But there would not be this squad protest against the ceasefire, which Biden has said some things against Netanyahu. But there are people in the Democratic Party, including members of the squad, that don't think that that's gone far enough. I think Hakeem Jeffries has taken kind of like battle with Biden on some issues and everything. So I can't say that it is the Biden party when some of the forebearers of the party are actually going against him, and that has actually been a very strong case on several issues.
Has Hakeem stepped up and said, "I'm running for president"? No, he hasn't, because he knows you have his little butt spanked.
Incorrect, Nick. Again, the incumbent president is usually the head of the party at that moment. There's no there is no place in history. No place in history that you can point to change that.
A Democrat.
Just point out the facts. Just point out the facts.
Come on, that's the fact.
Just point out facts again. It's a
Robert
fact.
Kennedy, a Democrat, tried to oppose Biden. He got
fact. Robert Kennedy is not a Democrat. Robert Kennedy is a conspiracy-laden, crazy person. Robert Kennedy is a nut.
So the Democrats have a good problem, which is they represent a whole range. They've got a big umbrella from the far left to the center. You know, the Republicans basically have unitary positions to farther and farther right. So the Democrats are always going to have people, the leftists pissed off at the center, centrists pissed off at the left. You know what the cliche is, herding cats. They're, you know, the Tlaib and her, what do you call it? That represents like 1% of the Democrats in Congress. And they piss off a lot of people who aren't as extreme as them. But it's better to own the left and the center than to be the Republicans and keep painting themselves into a more extreme corner.
Well, what's wrong with the right and the center? That's what the Republicans own. They own the right and the center, and that's one reason they're going to win the election this year.
So the Republicans own the extreme right now. For example, here you go.
Toby.
Nick, again, we cannot play this false equivalency game. When we talk about, for example, if you want to bring up the squad, they have a small percentage. They have no power in the actual government at this moment, in comparison to Marjorie Taylor Greene, who actually sat at the head of the House. She actually took over for McCarthy a couple of times, sitting there ringing the gavel. Marjorie Taylor Greene chased down a victim of a school shooting to complain and cry that he was a crisis actor. Marjorie Taylor Greene has put out racist and anti-Semitic propaganda in the ethos, and she was actually sitting at the head of the House. You have Lauren Boebert, who has a ton of pull, even though she's giving hand jobs. And yes, I use pull for a reason, because she's giving hand jobs in front of kids in a concert. You have Matt Gaetz, a guy who should be in jail for soliciting sex from a minor, paid for sex from a minor, who has pulled and yelling out extremist things at the friggin' House. So you have these individuals, the extremes run the GOP. That is why the MAGA party is the Trump party, which is the GOP. You don't have that in the Democrat Party. It's exactly what Rick was just talking about, how there's such a broad swath of individuals that they cover, and the main individuals that are in the center of the Democrat Party are the Hakeem Jeffries and those that actually are making sense when they actually put up different policies. So you cannot play the false equivalency game there.
When you're a Democrat, you tend to ignore this Democrat named Mark B. Jimenez. Let's see, Democrat fundraiser indicted on additional accounts. So apparently you
Hold
don't
on.
want
Again,
Democrats
false
that are
equivalency.
you
False
don't want to bring that up,
equivalency.
Juju
The
Toby.
head of the Republican Party, the head of the Republican Party, Donald John Trump, is a sexual abuser. He lost 2 cases around sexual abuse, still has over 20 accusations of sexual abuse, has actually lost the case for being a fraud. Now he cannot pay his $454 billion. He also has 4 indictments sitting, 90 plus cases against him. So don't tell me anything about a Bob Menendez who's going to jail. Anybody else? Rick has his question there.
So hold on a second. I did have a question for, and I did see your hand, Rick. I did have a question for everybody because Kamala apparently, and I know not Rick, but hopefully Steve will be meeting Kamala in a few minutes. For all we know, that might be where Jacoby's driving to as well. But that being said, and all along those lines, Kamala did get herself in trouble recently because one of the things I saw is that she was praising a campaign worker for being like the face of nonpartisanship. And apparently this gentleman is very partisan and all along this line. So this was something that happened recently that she got in trouble with because she was saying that this was a great nonpartisan person at a voting poll. And then when folks did the back research, he is very much involved in a
that's no smoking gun. It's a trivial distraction. But when you're a Democrat, what you can do, because the Democrats have the left and the center. When Clinton got in trouble in his first term with popularity, he moved way to the center and became very popular. He cracked down. He put a lot of people in prison. He did welfare reform, and you see Biden doing the same thing, becoming, with the toughest. Biden moves to the center and comes out with a very tough immigration reform bill, and that may, help his. Trump scuttled it, but moving to
I've got that uniform question for everybody. But since Lee and Jacoby asked for it, I do have another commercial. This one's involving cybersecurity. So let's have a little break.
I need to help out.
As the owner of Wrexham Football Club, I need to watch out for our players. I've been a star for a long time. These guys have no idea what's coming.
It's cold. Look, we got a big match coming up, and I know what you're worried about. Cybersecurity. How many of you have heard of 1Password? Really? Okay, well, how many of you have downloaded 1Password? Wow, no idea Wales was so cutting edge. So I guess you know that 1Password completely secures your digital life.
Yeah.
Mullen!
I will shove a red card so far up your ass, people will think it's your tongue. Now, let's talk nighttime skincare routines.
1Password. Simplest, smartest, secure rear wrist.
I want to help Jacoby out with his memory problem. He has one similar to Joe Biden. He lists all the sex scandals of the Republicans, but omitted Anthony Cuomo, who looks to be a Democrat, who had to step down with his sexual scandal. He omitted Al Franklin. Al Franklin had to do the same thing. And frankly, he omitted Joe Biden, who's also been accused of...
By a lunatic. Okay, Joe Biden was accused by Tara Reid. Hold on. Accused by Tara Reid, a Russian defector.
You only had Republicans on your list and you didn't put Democrats, except that you drink the Democratic Kool-Aid.
All right. So,
by the way, speaking of Kool-Aid,
that's a fair point, except that the accuser of Biden is a nut. I've dealt with her. She's an asshole, and she defected to Russia. She's a scammer, and she's full of crap.
Hold on. Did Nick just say, wait, real quick, Mark, did Nick just say that I didn't say any Democrats that were corrupt? When I pointed out Bob Menendez, who's going to go to jail?
Yeah,
so again,
Bob Menendez is super corrupt and super stupid. He's terrible.
Couple of quick questions because we're going to wrap up in about 5 minutes, and this is actually maybe you can give maybe Steve's still listening and everything. First off, that was a actor from Canada, and he actually owns that team or the part of the ownership, and apparently that is a actor doing kind of the Tom Brady thing with his football team, and football in the case of soccer and everything along those lines. So I might grab some more of those then first.
Ryan Reynolds is coming out with Deadpool 3 in a few months, which might be the biggest movie of the year.
Yeah, exactly. He's coming out with that movie as well, and all along those lines. But the question I have is that in about 30 minutes or 35 minutes, unless Jacoby is driving there, because I know I'm not going to go be meeting her and everything, Steve Brown will be meeting Kamala Harris. So I'm asking, because I just brought up the homeless thing, I'm hoping that he'll bring up the issue of homelessness and housing here in the area. But if y'all had, and if Steve is listening, maybe he can go and bring our questions to Kamala. So if you had a question for Kamala, or a statement for Kamala, what would it be? I'll start with you, Rick. I want to hear Lee Newton Rose and Jacoby's, because like I said, maybe Steve is still listening, and maybe he'll.
I don't have a question. I just have if Kamala Harris ever becomes president, she will be the shortest president in history. She's 5'2", which is weird to have such a. The previous shortest president was like 5'4" back in the beginning of the 19th century. So I don't know if that will be an issue if she ever runs or runs again.
Lee Newton Rhodes, you're running for president yourself.
Interesting, Rick. I didn't know that.
A question.
Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer. It should be an invitation to Pod TV. It should be extended.
Agreed. I think Steve should do that and everything, and then you can answer the questions directly. Jacoby, any idea of a question that you would ask Kamala? For all I know, you could be driving to see Kamala.
Nope, not driving to see Kamala. I'm stuck in construction traffic right now. The only thing that I would probably discuss with her is thinking out of the box on ideas for solutions rather than the same repeated pattern that we get trapped into just because of our age. And that's what happens on this show sometimes. But the cool thing is, and I guess you didn't even point it out though, Mark, and it may have slipped by you. The cool thing that Rick just pointed out is talking about the shortest president, but he never once mentioned about her being female or being a woman. And that is actually a really, really neat thing to think about, is the fact that instead of comparing her and this is, Rick just did the utopian thing that we always want to have, is the fact that, hey, we're trying to not always get to the point where we talk about the first of. And the fact that he just alluded to, hey, we're talking about her size in comparison to other men and treating her as an equal. That was a really neat moment that I think, I just wanted to point to. And I applaud Rick for doing that, because that's actually very, very cool, and a place that in society at some point we can get to. But it's cool that moment just happened, and hopefully, we can learn
more of that. Before
just real quick, Toby, women can already vote. We have women mayors, governors, heads of states, and stuff like that. Why is it relevant, the gender of a president?
In a utopian society, it should not be relevant. But the fact of the matter is, we've never, ever, ever in our society, in the United States, have never had a woman president. And yes, it would be amazing for that to take place. But the fact is, we should get to a point where, yes, we've had women presidents on a regular. We've had female governors on a regular, how you just pointed out. But we've never had a female president. We've never gotten to a point or even gotten close to that.
I hear you. One more question for Toby. Would we be better off if we did have a female president, if we checked that box, then it moved on?
It's not about it. So that would change us for a lot of women, just as President Obama had a good effect on a lot of the Black community, because we finally were able to see that at some point we have that opportunity. So for a lot of women, it's a can do, because it has been done. It's not that's just something that we can't do because nobody's ever going to vote for us, or nobody's ever going to look at us, and everybody's ever going to see us that way.
In 2016, the more qualified candidate was the woman, of somebody with 20, 30 years of experience versus the guy with 0 years of experience.
But along those same lines, and we're going to walk out the door, we'll be back on Monday and everything. I mean, I personally, even though it's not part of my community and all along those lines, because definitely I have certain preferences of my own and everything, but I think that in the ideal world, kind of what Jacoby was saying, it should not matter what Pistol Pete, or that's what my nickname for him is, and everything does in his bedroom and all along those lines. So I would argue that orientation shouldn't matter either and everything in that space. And there are some people in the Christian community and other communities that might disagree with me, but I'm thinking that it should be about what he's doing for the country and not what his orientation is. And that is referring to a former presidential candidate as well that has been put out there as a possible candidate for 2028 and all along those lines. But that would just my opinion and my thoughts on that. But there are others that would disagree with that. But like I said, we're here to get on out of here and all along those lines. But we'll be back on Monday, and I think we'll be hearing from Steve how his meeting went with Kamala. I think he should be doing that in about 30 or 40 minutes. And then we'll also be having conversations around other issues as well. And we'll be doing a rerun later on because he's still on his vacation and he'll be coming back soon. So Ukraine, Russia, and China, which will be starting in a few minutes, will be a rerun episode with Sasha will be back live on next Tuesday. But definitely we'll be having these continuing conversations. I think we've got some guests coming next week as well. But right now we're going to get on out of here. It was good to see Lee's face, since lately he's been hiding in the background. So it was good to see Lee's face actually on the camera and all along those lines. But we're going to get on out of here. And who knows, I might even bring him that Gatorade commercial next week and all in that space, because I love finding those in that case just to break some of the conversation. But right now, let's get on out.